I had always wanted to visit Colorado, one of the best states for camping in the US, 1-9. I had heard so much about its natural beauty, rugged mountains, and breathtaking landscape. So when I got a chance to take a week off from work, I decided to book a flight to Denver and rent a car to drive to Cedar Bluff State Park, 2-5, where I had reserved a campsite online. The park was located 21 miles southeast of Waukene and 23 miles southwest of Ellis in Trego County, Kansas, 2-5. It had two areas, the Bluffton area on the north shore and the Page Creek area on the south shore of the Cedar Bluff Reservoir, 2-5. I chose the Bluffton area because it had more primitive campsites and hiking trails, and I wanted to experience the wilderness as much as possible. I arrived at the park in the afternoon and set up my tent at a secluded spot near the edge of the bluff, overlooking the reservoir. The view was stunning. The water sparkled in the sun, reflecting the blue sky and the white clouds. The bluff was covered with green grass and wildflowers, and I could see the rocky hills and forests in the distance. The air was fresh and crisp, and I felt a surge of excitement and peace. I decided to go for a hike before sunset, to explore the park and enjoy the scenery. I grabbed my backpack, which contained some water, snacks, a flashlight, a map, and a knife, and headed to the nearest trailhead. The trail was marked with wooden signs and yellow blazes, and it seemed easy to follow. I walked at a moderate pace, admiring the nature around me. I saw some birds, squirrels, rabbits, and deer along the way, and I felt a connection with the wildlife. The trail led me to a wooded area, where the trees cast shadows on the ground. The temperature dropped a few degrees, and I felt a slight breeze. I checked my watch and saw that it was almost 6 p.m. I figured I had enough time to make a loop and get back to my campsite before dark. I continued walking, humming a tune to myself. That's when I heard it. A low growl, coming from behind me. I stopped and turned around, scanning the trees for the source of the sound. I saw nothing, but I felt a chill down my spine. I thought it might be a coyote or a bobcat, but the growl sounded deeper and more menacing. I decided to turn back and head to my campsite as fast as I could. I quickened my pace, hoping to outrun whatever was behind me, but it was too late. I heard another growl, louder and closer. I looked over my shoulder and saw a large, dark shape emerge from the bushes. It was a bear, a huge black bear, and it was charging at me. I panicked and ran, dropping my backpack and screaming for help. I knew I had no chance of outrunning a bear, but I had no other option. I prayed that someone would hear me and come to my rescue, but no one did. The park was deserted, and I was alone. The bear was gaining on me, and I could hear its heavy breathing and its claws digging into the dirt. I reached a clearing, where the trail forked into two directions. I didn't have time to think, so I chose the left one, hoping it would lead me to safety. I was wrong. The trail ended abruptly at a cliff, a sheer drop of at least 50 feet to the rocks and water below. I skidded to a halt, barely avoiding the edge. I turned around, hoping to find another way out, but the bear was already there, blocking my path. It roared, showing its teeth and claws. It was angry, hungry, and ready to kill. I backed away, inching towards the edge. I had nowhere to go, no escape. I felt tears in my eyes, and a lump in my throat. I knew I was going to die, and I wished I had never come to this park. I wished I had stayed home, safe and sound. I wished I had said goodbye to my family and friends. I wished I had lived a better life. The bear lunged at me, knocking me off balance. I fell, screaming, towards the abyss. I saw the sky, the water, the rocks, and then nothing. Everything went black. I had always wanted to go camping in Colorado, one of the best states for camping, 1-9. I had heard so much about the natural beauty, the rugged mountains, and the breathtaking landscape. So when I got a chance to take a week off from work, I packed my tent, my sleeping bag, and my hiking gear, and drove to Cedar Bluff State Park, 2-5, one of the most scenic places in the state. The park was located 21 miles southeast of Waukene, and had a reservoir, a wildlife area, and several trails to explore. I arrived in the afternoon, and set up my campsite near the water. The park was not very crowded, probably because it was late fall and the weather was getting colder. I saw a few other tents and RVs, but they were far enough that I felt like I had some privacy. The campsite was spacious and well maintained, with a fire ring, a picnic table, and a grill. I decided to make a fire and cook some hot dogs for dinner, and then go for a short hike before sunset. I checked the map at the park entrance, and chose a trail that looked easy and interesting. It was called the Bluffton Trail, and it was supposed to take me to a high point where I could see the whole reservoir and the surrounding hills. The trail was about 2 miles long, and had a moderate elevation gain. I figured I could do it in an hour or so, and be back before it got too dark. I grabbed my flashlight, my water bottle, and my backpack, and headed to the trailhead. The trail was well marked and easy to follow. It started out flat, and then gradually ascended through a forest of juniper and oak trees. The air was crisp and fresh, and I enjoyed the sound of birds and squirrels. I felt relaxed and happy, and forgot about all the stress and worries of my everyday life. I was glad I had come here, and looked forward to seeing the view from the top. As I hiked, I noticed that the trail was getting steeper and rockier. I had to watch my step and use my hands to balance myself. The trees were thinning out, and I could see the sky turning orange and pink. I checked my watch, and realized that I had been hiking for almost an hour. I wondered how much longer it would take me to reach the bluff. I hoped I would make it before the sun set, because I didn't want to hike back in the dark. I kept going, and soon I saw a sign that said, Bluffton Trail End. I felt a surge of excitement, and quickened my pace. I reached the end of the trail, and looked around. I was standing on a flat, rocky area, surrounded by low bushes. In front of me, there was a steep drop-off, and beyond that, the reservoir. The view was stunning. The water was shimmering in the fading light, and the hills were silhouetted against the sky. I felt a sense of awe and wonder, and took out my phone to take a picture. I snapped a few shots, and then put my phone away. I decided to sit down and enjoy the view for a few minutes before heading back. I found a large rock that looked comfortable, and sat on it. I took a sip of water, and breathed deeply. I felt peaceful and calm, and smiled to myself. This was the best part of my trip, and I was glad I had made it. I was about to get up and leave, when I heard a noise behind me. It sounded like a twig snapping. I turned around, and saw a man standing a few feet away from me. He was wearing a dark hoodie, jeans, and boots. He had a backpack on his back, and a knife in his hand. He was staring at me with a cold, expressionless face. I felt a jolt of fear, and jumped to my feet. I didn't know who he was, or what he wanted, but I knew he was not friendly. I looked for a way to escape, but there was none. The only way back was the trail, and he was blocking it. The only other option was to jump off the bluff, and that was certain death. I was trapped. I tried to act calm, and said, "Hi, I'm sorry I didn't see you there. I was just leaving. Do you mind if I pass?" He didn't answer. He just kept staring at me, and slowly raised his knife. He took a step towards me, and then another. He was coming closer, and I had nowhere to go. I panicked and screamed, "Help! Help! Someone help me!" But there was no one to hear me. The park was deserted, and the nearest campsite was miles away. I was alone, with a stranger who wanted to kill me. I backed away from him, until I reached the edge of the bluff. I looked down, and saw the water far below. I looked up, and saw his face, twisted in a cruel smile. He lunged at me, and stabbed me in the chest. I felt a sharp pain, and then nothing. I fell off the bluff, and into the darkness. I had always wanted to go camping in Colorado, one of the best states for camping, 4. I had heard so much about the natural beauty, the rugged mountains, and the breathtaking landscape. So when I got a chance to visit Rocky Mountain National Park, I was thrilled. I booked a campsite at Moraine Park Campground, which had stunning views of the surrounding peaks and meadows. The campground was huge, with over 200 sites, but it was also very popular, so I had to reserve my spot months in advance. I arrived at the campground in the afternoon, set up my tent, and decided to go for a hike before sunset. I chose a trail that led to Cub Lake, a scenic spot about 2 miles from the campground. The trail was well marked and easy to follow, and I enjoyed the fresh air and the sounds of nature. I saw some deer, squirrels, and birds along the way, but no other hikers. I guess most people preferred to stay near the campground or the visitor center. I reached Cub Lake after about an hour of hiking, and I was not disappointed. The lake was a clear blue, reflecting the sky and the mountains. There were some lily pads and flowers on the shore, and a few ducks swimming in the water. I sat down on a rock and took out my camera, snapping some pictures of the beautiful scenery. I felt a sense of peace and wonder, and I wished I could stay there longer. But I knew I had to get back to the campground before dark, so I packed up my camera and started to retrace my steps. The sun was getting lower in the sky, casting long shadows on the trail. I quickened my pace, hoping to make it back in time. I didn't want to be caught in the woods at night, especially since I didn't have a flashlight with me. As I was walking, I heard a rustle in the bushes behind me. I turned around, expecting to see another animal, but instead I saw a man. He was tall and thin, with long, greasy hair and a scruffy beard. He wore a dirty, torn shirt and jeans, and a pair of boots that looked like they had seen better days. He had a backpack on his back, but it was open, and I could see some metal objects inside. He also had a knife in his hand, and he was smiling at me. I felt a surge of fear and panic, and I wondered who he was and what he wanted. I had never seen him before, and he didn't look like a park ranger or a fellow camper. He looked like a drifter, or a fugitive, or a serial killer. He looked like trouble. "Hey there, buddy," he said in a raspy voice. "Nice camera you got there. Mind if I take a look?" I didn't answer, but I backed away, clutching my camera to my chest. I hoped he would leave me alone, but he didn't. He followed me, still smiling, still holding his knife. "Come on, don't be shy," he said. "I just want to see your pictures. Maybe you have some of the lake, or the ducks, or the flowers. Or maybe you have some of yourself, or your girlfriend, or your family. I like to see people's faces, you know. It helps me remember them." I didn't like what he was implying, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I knew I had to get away from him, but I didn't know how. He was blocking the trail, and I didn't know if I could outrun him. I also didn't know if he had any friends nearby, or if he had a gun, or if he had a trap set up. I felt trapped, and I wished I had never left the campground. "Please, just leave me alone," I said in a shaky voice. "I don't want any trouble. I'm just here to enjoy the park." He laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Oh, you're here to enjoy the park, are you? Well, so am I. And you know what I enjoy? I enjoy hunting. And you know what I hunt? I hunt people. People like you." He lunged at me, swinging his knife. I dodged, barely, and ran past him, hoping to find another way back to the campground. He chased after me, shouting and cursing. I ran as fast as I could, but he was faster. He caught up with me, grabbed me by the collar, and threw me to the ground. He pinned me down, and raised his knife above his head. "This is it, buddy," he said with a twisted grin. "This is the end. Say goodbye to the world, and say hello to hell." He brought his knife down, aiming for my heart. I closed my eyes and waited for the pain, but it never came. Instead, I heard a loud bang and a thud. I opened my eyes and saw him lying next to me, blood pouring from his chest. He was still holding his knife, but he was not moving. He was dead. I looked up and saw a park ranger standing over me, holding a rifle. He had a badge on his chest and a radio on his shoulder. He looked at me with a concerned expression and asked me if I was okay. I nodded, too shocked to speak. He helped me up and checked me for injuries. He told me I was lucky, that he had heard the commotion and came to investigate. He told me the man was a wanted criminal, who had escaped from prison and had been hiding in the park. He told me he had killed several people before, and that I was his latest target. He told me I was safe now, and that he would take me back to the campground. I thanked him, and followed him. He led me back to the trail, and we walked together, in silence. I was still shaking, and I couldn't believe what had happened. I had gone for a hike, and I had almost died. I had seen the face of evil, and I had survived. I reached the campground, and saw my tent. I felt a wave of relief, and a surge of gratitude. I was alive, and I was home. I hugged the ranger, and thanked him again. He smiled, and told me to take care. He left me, and went to report the incident. I went inside my tent, and lay down on my sleeping bag. I took out my camera, and looked at the pictures I had taken. I saw the lake, the ducks, the flowers. I saw the beauty of nature, and the wonder of life. I also saw the man, the knife, the blood. I saw the horror of death, and the terror of fear. I deleted the last picture, and turned off the camera. I closed my eyes, and tried to sleep. I hoped to forget the nightmare, and to remember the dream. I hoped to never see his face again, and to never hear his voice again. I hoped to never go hiking alone again, and to never meet anyone like him again. I hoped to live, and to be happy.